Jason and Aisha are visiting Shrewsbury Prison. As prisons in 2050 are more streamlined facilities, with more freedom and more focus on rehabilitation rather than the other way around, they are curious about how the prisons used to be. Jason decides to do the AI tour of the newer Victorian sites, whereas Aisha is choosing to do the underground prison tour of the old Georgian sites. At reception, Jason is given a QR code that he can scan on his phone, which will project a map of the prison, and then he sets off to find the tour group. When he catches up with the rest of the group, the AI image of Graham the prison officer appears and greets them. He then sets off around the site, giving information about the prison and telling first-hand stories of different inmates and events that happened at the time of the prison. As the group were entirely adults, Graham was able to be a bit more graphic with the stories as how he is compared when there are children present. At each section of the prison they come to, after Graham has finished speaking, they are allowed to explore that area, with Jason being able to use the holographic map on his phone to explore the area as well as learning some interesting facts about that section. When they get to A Wing, Jason goes over to a cell where an AI named George the Prisoner appears and tells the group his story of living in Shrewsbury Prison. Both George and Graham are able to answer any questions asked by the group, as well as interact with them and make jokes, just like a real tour guide would. Meanwhile, Aisha is strapping on her helmet as she is led by the AI Drew the Historian and Excavator underground into the old Georgian prison. Most of the Georgian prison has been unearthed and the concrete and old piping has been taken out, so much of the site is now accessible. After going through safety procedures, Drew takes Aisha and the rest of the group underground, where half the tour is done with just how the prison looks today. But the second half is different, because of holographic projection is used to recreate how the prison would have looked in Georgian times, with music playing and special lighting to really create the atmosphere and make Aisha feel like they were really in Georgian times. When Aisha and the group get to one of the wings, a holographic family steps out of one of the cells, a mother, father, and young son. They will proceed to tell the group of what life would have been like during these times and the awful conditions that they would have lived in. As well, they would have explained how and why they got there and the unfair treatment that many prisoners faced during this period of time. After Jason and Aisha finish their respective tours, they emerge into the exercise yard, where a talk is being given by a panel of notable prison reformers. They discuss how prisons have changed in the past 30 years and how they believe it will continue to change even more so in the future. The audience for the talk is encouraged to ask questions and to discuss with the speakers about the debates surrounding prison reform. Aisha asked them if prisons will even exist in the next 50 years, and what alternative methods could exist for dealing with criminals. Jason and Aisha leave the prison and decide that they will be visiting more of the camera group's attractions over the following weeks, as they are now situated all over Shropshire. A great day was had by all. Due to the building's ever-growing maintenance issues, unfortunately the site has been written off. Most of the site, except for the sections that are historically listed, have been demolished, and there are plans to turn the site into a housing estate. This has been brought about due to the lack of funding the Shrewsbury prison has received. They were not able to capitalise on the driving societal trends, and therefore the business stagnated. As the overall structure of the site continued to deteriorate, they did not have the funds to keep up with repairs. Because most of the company's money went on prolonging the health of the building, they were never able to expand to other sites. They had to sell their sister site at Shepton Mallet to keep Shrewsbury Prison afloat, but this was not a permanent solution. The business shrank and shrank until they could eventually hold out no longer. Because Shrewsbury were never able to use their platform to promote further prison reform, the entire prison reform movement had been set back, causing very little to change within the lives of prisoners all over the country. This was a tragic loss of British heritage, and a big hit to the economy of Shrewsbury. Many jobs were lost, and tourism numbers for Shrewsbury declined drastically. Scott, an ex-prisoner, is visiting the charitable foundation now set up in Shrewsbury Prison, called Second Chances. He heard that this charity helps ex-prisoners get back on their feet, and he was in desperate need of some help. After speaking with those who work there, he found out that they have schemes to help people find employment with employers who are okay with hiring ex-cons. He discovered that they also run training and apprenticeship courses to help ex-cons get extra qualifications. Scott wants to try out the training schemes and applies to a number of businesses that the Second Chances charity works in tandem with. He gets accepted by Madigan Gill, a construction services provider, and he will begin his training with them in the following days. Scott had a hard time in prison and struggled mentally. Scott explained this to the people who work at Second Chances, and they are willing to provide him adequate professional care, as they house several licensed therapists and support workers in the prison. The charity is also bringing an appeal to the government to try and enact a new policy to have nationwide support for ex-prisoners. Instead of having to rely on charities and local councils, there would now be government-led schemes. Scott agrees that this would massively benefit ex-prisoners and it would drastically reduce reoffending rates, so Scott signs the petition. With the uncertainty of our political and economic situation, Shrewsbury Prison never developed a clear strategy for the future, and therefore most of the business stayed relatively similar to how it operates now. The business is continuing to run well and make progress, but it isn't progressing as fast as it could be. Shrewsbury Prison will continue to use the same methods to bring in customers and give them a good experience, but won't be making the advancements in regard to technology and social trends that they could be doing. The company is, however, still growing, and by 2050 they will have acquired Shrewsbury Castle to add to their own list of properties. They will be one of, if not the biggest heritage/tourist site in the whole of Shropshire, and one of the biggest in the entirety of the West Midlands. Because of their lack of growth, however, many heritage sites around Shropshire will be taken over by larger groups and charities such as English Heritage and the National Trust. This will therefore limit the amount of properties that Shrewsbury Prison could expand into. They will still experience maintenance issues, and this will limit their progress, but they will continue to have successes, and therefore they will be able to keep on top of fixing the site so that it does not overwhelm them.